Hi guys, Matt here, founder of AutoGrow.co, as you may already know. In this video, I'm going to talk about the 5 dimensions that we evaluate developer applicants on. We're doing a lot of interviews right now. We're building out our development team. We want to make a much more serious push in terms of our technology and features and for the future and long-term of the business and achieving the long-term vision that we have for the company coming up in 2022. So we're laying the groundwork for that right now. I'm doing a lot of interviews and I'm learning a lot from doing it. It's been a while since I've done developer interviews, especially as many as we're doing right now, back to back to back. And so I want to go over the 5 dimensions that we use to evaluate applicants. And so whether you are a potential applicant looking to work with us, if you're looking to onboard developers onto your team, and what's the process like, at least kind of in the middle of your hiring funnel, if you want to think about it that way, I think this video could be helpful to you. And in addition, at the end of the video, I'm going to give you some of my disqualifiers, the things that maybe not by themselves, but in combination with each other will actually just make it be an absolute no-go. And if you see these, they are red flags, and together they should just kind of point the way to a no for you. And you probably want to apply these just to save yourself time. All right, so let's get into the first thing. So the first criteria that we use is preparedness. So when I get on a call, I'm looking for just basic things. So are they prepared? Are they ready to talk about themselves, about their experience? Are they ready to provide a reference or references if we ask, okay, would you be able to do this? We will ask to see examples of projects that they've worked on that would be relevant in terms of the technology, or their experience in terms of what we are building and what we're looking to build. Because if we work together full-time, one-on-one, we want to know that you have the right experience and the know-how to do what we are looking to do. And it doesn't have to be, a perfect fit. Obviously, you're not going to find someone who built exactly, whatever you are looking to build in terms of developer, but, still pretty important. So are they ready? Are they ready to just, share their screen and show this? Are they ready to, show some code? Do they struggle with answering basic questions? Preparedness, and also under preparedness too, I would say just general overall presentation. You don't have to be necessarily totally clean shaven. If your hair is sticking up like one over here, like it's not the end of the world. Some of the smartest, most capable people might have a wrinkled shirt, or whatever the case is. It definitely is a plus, though, I would say, if someone shows that they are self-aware and they are conscientious in terms of how they not only speak, but just in terms of general business casual, professional presentation, or even business formal. Some people, when I've gotten on the call with them, I'm more open to the idea of working with them just because I see, they're wearing a button down and a collared shirt. They have a clear background. There's not a lot of stuff going on. It's just like a solid color or whatever the case is. They take this interview seriously. They want to make a good impression. So preparedness is the first thing. Number 2 is experience. This one's pretty quick and easy to tell. So I'll ask, how many years experience do you have as a developer? How many years experience specifically do you have working with, this technology, for example, PHP or Vue.js, or other, PHP frameworks, CodeIgniter, for example, or Laravel. And then I'll ask to see actual examples and also to even see the code. So in terms of experience, that's the other key criteria that we look at. Pretty obvious one, but it's important. You ask, and what I really look for too, especially right now, I think if you're working seriously and you're working full time as a developer, I think to be good, you have to have a minimum of 5 years of experience, because then you have some level of mastery, probably, of the technology, of just thinking about programming and coding and problem solving, so that you can be efficient You can write code that isn't very buggy, that is hopefully more secure. And you just have experience thinking about the types of problems that you're going to have to solve if we work together, right? And that only comes from time, because what was that book? I think it was Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. He talked about the 10,000 hour rule, which is kind of in the zeitgeist now. Everyone knows and has heard about the 10,000 hour rule. If you're not familiar with it, it just basically holds the thesis that if you are going to master any sort of skill, it generally is going to take you about 10,000 hours to be fantastic about it. And he gave the example of the Beatles just playing together, jamming at all types of pubs and cafes and restaurants and, just different events throughout England before they were well known. And that gave them the experience where they learned how to play together. They learned how to be musicians and how to develop a unique and authentic and original sound. So 10,000 hours, 5 years, 2,000 hours per year. The third criteria is communication. So do I actually understand, and do you understand what I'm saying? Do you hear me? Is your English good? English is considered today to be kind of the universal language. I don't know if it's number one in terms of prevalence of being spoken, but it's definitely number one or number two. And at least as far as all the work that we have done, being a complete virtual company, we have over 50 team members all over the world. We're not speaking other languages, although sometimes some team members at school, we go back and forth in different languages. But we're all kind of unified around English as the main point of communication. That's what our clients use. That's what we use internally. And so it's really important that the English ability be up there. I would say a minimum of an 8. And it's more concerning too if we ask someone on the forum before they get on the call with us, hey, what's your level of English? And they say 8, but in reality, it's more like a 7. Also, like if there's a quality of connection in terms of, the internet connection, or they have a bad mic, or they're not willing to get on video. These are also things that affects, the criteria and how we're going to evaluate each of these dimensions in terms of evaluating the applicant. And for your reference too, when we're scoring this, we're scoring it on a basis of 1 to 5, 5 being, fantastic, 1 being terrible. So I haven't met anyone who I've scored a 1 for yet. Well, there's one criteria coming up. I'll share that in a second. The fourth criteria is speed. So I'll ask if you understand a code base, for a specific project, you've worked with it for like at least a month, let's say. So you understand the code base. First, how would you evaluate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of speed to create and add new features? And generally what I've seen is that the better applicants, they will score themselves, either an 8 or a 9. You kind of get a sense of someone's ability too, so you kind of have to base it on context. I had one applicant in the past, we hired him for a little bit, and he was actually terrible as a developer. He wasn't able to create code that was good, that was not messy, that actually worked. I remember distinctly hey, you said you were a 10 out of 10. So we had another developer though recently that also, I think, said he was a 10 out of 10, but this guy could actually back it up. And you could tell that that was highly likely, in part because of how he was a good communicator. He showed examples of projects from some pretty big name brands and companies and organizations. He showed examples of his code as well. And it was evident that he could probably, he would probably be pretty quick. The second self-scoring for this criteria, so we kind of let the applicants determine their own score sort of in this way in terms of speed. So part of it is based on, our impression, but mainly it's based on a mix of these two questions. The second question being, how do you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of your ability to problem solve when it comes to bugs that will pop up? in, in something that you've coded. And, pretty much same thing that I said in terms of rating people. Generally, I think people who rate themselves 8 or 9, we found tend to be better fits. The 10s, you got to be more skeptical. You have to kind of take it with a grain of salt and evaluate it, along with everything else that they show you and tell you. Okay. And then the final criteria is your personal feel. And so I'll score this not on 1 to 5, but on a scale of 1 to 3. So 3 is like, I would generally, I could see myself working with this person. I think I would enjoy working with this person. I think they have a good attitude, a good temperament. I think developers are interesting too, because like I've got both sides of the brain going on in me, whatever the expression is. Sales on the one hand I'm doing, and so I kind of practiced at being extroverted for that. And then development on the other hand, when I have gotten into just deep into code and development mode, I just don't want to talk to people. I'm just introverted. I'm just like code, solve the next problem, solve the next problem, solve the next problem. You're a hammer and everything is a nail. Like you just want to code, you just want to keep making progress because it's addictive. And so, developers are interesting people for that reason, because even if someone doesn't come off as like, maybe the most warm or open or, maybe a bit serious, that doesn't mean that they aren't potentially a great fit for the position. So I think it's definitely rare that you will find a developer who is extroverted and warm and friendly and can like literally kind of sell him or herself. I think that's more rare, but it's a plus, if that's included in there too. But everyone is different, and it's interesting too to see, when you look at the different positions, in your company or different skill sets, how there are oftentimes patterns in terms of personality traits. For example, I've noticed some things like with designers and just the personality, being more flamboyant, eccentric, creative, which I think is awesome. And then developers tending to be a little bit more reserved or introverted, and kind of have to, in a team setting, I've noticed you kind of have to push everyone to communicate just a little bit more, but then people warm up over time. So anyway, 1 to 3 personal feel. And can you see yourself working with the person? Do they kind of an overall gut feel, I guess you would say. Now, some of the disqualifiers to wrap up on, they relate to some of the criteria that I already said, like communication. So if you're on an interview and you're constantly repeating yourself, this is an immediate red flag. In a similar way, if I'm repeating myself, or the person is interrupting, or they're clearly not listening, you have to take that as literally a little skill test in and of itself, and not assume that it would get any better in time. Because how it starts is how it's going to be, is how it's probably going to end, if and when it does, end. And that's life. That's employment relationships and partnerships and whatever. Things often come to an end. Maybe they go on forever for your entire life, and that'd be great. But it's important to assume that how it starts is how it's just going to be. If someone obviously has good command of the English language, but they might have a heavy accent, or they might mumble, or the connection is bad, you may not want to disqualify on that criteria alone, and you probably shouldn't. But if it's going to introduce significant friction, you have to be objective in your evaluation of the applicant, because if you are struggling to understand the person, even if they are brilliant, it's just going to make it's just a fact of business, and within your organization, like how are they going to be able to communicate with other team members? Like I was just on a call before I started hitting record here. I was interviewing this applicant. He had significant experience, actually over a decade of experience as a developer, but I had to repeat myself several times. I was like, can I see some of your code? Can you show me an example of a function in PHP code that you've written? And he didn't he just wasn't listening. He was like, oh, let me show you this over here, this thing over here. And then at the same time too, I asked him, oh, well, what do you do when you're not working? And he didn't understand me for some reason. He said something completely different. I repeated myself again. I imagined for a moment what it would be like for one of our developers who's already on the team. And everyone's all over the world, right? So, if I, as someone who has a ton of experience working with people from all over the world, all different cultures, all different accents, I'm struggling to understand this one person, someone with less experience, who we might want to say, lead our development team. I don't want to give our development team leader and development team members, I don't want them to have to struggle even harder than I would have to understand this person. It's just too much friction. So I think speaking clearly is something that if you're an applicant, definitely focus on. And then, as far as you actually evaluating applicants, don't discard it. The other disqualifiers are, I interviewed someone who actually presented himself very well. He seemed prepared, enthusiastic, good attitude. But when I looked at his code, I said, well, with this SQL query for the database, it looks like Swiss cheese. I could just hack it in 2 seconds, and just, put all this junk data or whatever into the database. And he's like, oh, well, I validate it and I clean it on the front end. I'm like, well, it's a best practice that you have to validate on the back end too. And he was like, I don't know, like he just didn't really have like a good answer or maybe even understand, the point that I was trying to make, just in terms of basic security and basic best practices, because, it's not just a fun project that we're looking to hire for and that you're probably looking to hire for. It's a serious business web application or tool or some sort of automation. And you want to make sure that data is as secure as possible. So watch out for that. Also, just spaghetti code. Like if you are a developer evaluating other developers, you're going to know what I mean here. Just like, okay, if you're using this code igniter framework, why would you mix the Vue code with, PHP code so that they're happening in the same place? Why not keep them separate? Because that's the point of the framework anyway, to keep things kind of siloed and organized. So that's easy for you and future developers and a team of people to work on. So I think that's really important. And the final thing that is a potential red flag is, and you might disagree with this one, but when I ask to see example projects, if I see example projects where the design of the front end is consistently just terrible, I take that into account. I take that into account in terms of evaluating this potential applicant, because that means that even though the design may not have been their responsibility, it still indicates that someone who maybe wanted to be serious about their web application just didn't have, basic level of standards in terms of, spacing, like, okay, the text can't be like all the way over here. I would prefer to hire someone who has been hired by other people in the past who have some higher level of standard. And I think that that's what a lot of developers can tend to miss. And they're like, oh, but I've done this and that and this and that. And I've done, a project just like this. And I think it lacks a little bit of self-awareness. So if you're a developer and you're watching this video, I would really focus on this idea of just being more self-aware in terms of the presentation of things. Because if you are showing potential clients, employers, examples of projects that you've done that are just, they might be beautiful code and they might be functional, but if they are just ugly, that's a factor that's going to influence. Because design is visual, design is persuasive naturally. I think it's a fair bit of criteria to throw into the mix there when evaluating applicants as well. But let me know what you think. Leave a comment below. What is the criteria that you use, if any, that's different from what I said in terms of your evaluation of applicants? for the development position or for other positions within your company. And I'd love to hear your feedback in general. Are you finding these videos valuable, where I'm giving you kind of anecdotes as we are building, as we are scaling AutoGrow day to day, and the tips coming through in these videos? Just give me your feedback in general. Let me know, what is the biggest challenge that you face right now in your business? Love hearing from you guys. And if you found this video valuable and you find these videos in general to be valuable, please hit that like button down below. It looks just like this. It might look a little like this or like this or like this, but go ahead and click it right below. I appreciate it. And hit subscribe as well. Subscribe to our email newsletter over at autogrow.co as well. And speaking of autogrow.co, I want to encourage you to go ahead and check out AutoGrow, because maybe you're watching this video because you have to do some interviews of your own and you're familiar with the hiring process, and you know that, let's face it, it can be tedious, it can be a headache. And what if you could just skip all that when it comes to everything to do with your digital marketing projects and tasks, which are inevitable? I mean, let's face it, it's just a constant, it's a constant process of having to update things, of launching new funnels, of just being able to execute ideas that you know and you think are probably going to work, but you need to get that work off your plate, because either you're trying to do it yourself, or you're constantly trying to find and retain and keep people who are freelancers, who might, float away from time to time or permanently. Then you have to go find someone new, and it's expensive and it's time consuming for you. Now with AutoGrow, on the other hand, you can delegate all of your digital marketing projects unlimited without the headaches of hiring. So you sign up, you pay a flat, predictable price every month, and you get access to 12 skill sets. That includes copywriting, design, development, ads management, strategy, video editing and motion graphics, voiceover, and more. And it's an amazing value. It solves a real problem. No need to deal with the typical headaches of hiring, resumes, spreadsheets, interviews. Okay. You just sign up and you have a team who is competent, right at your fingertips, and friendly and ready to receive work done for you. It was Thanksgiving the other week. We had one client, just yesterday, we got a message saying, I'm so thankful. It's Thanksgiving, and I'm just so thankful for my AutoGrow team, because you guys can just do such a wide variety of work for me. Communication is great. The quality of the work is great. And we have fast turnaround times as well. So go check it out. If any of that sounds appealing to you, okay, we make it so easy to get started with a 14-day money-back guarantee. So there's no risk. What do you have to lose? So sign up, check it out, and then sign up at autogrow.co. So until next time, keep auto growing, stay focused. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.